What is going on, guys? Griffin here, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. Today, we're going to be talking about Xdefiant and specifically Ubisoft in general. Let's head over and let's talk about it. So per Variety, and of course this was written on October the 7th, 2024. So it's been about a week, a little over a week as of recording this, since this article was written. But Ubisoft responds to sale rumors. Star Wars Outlaws publisher regularly reviews all its strategic options. So Ubisoft has broken its silence regarding a potential sale of the company without explicitly confirming one way or another if it's in active negotiations. Last week, Bloomberg reported that Chinese tech company Tencent and the family of Ubisoft's co-founder and CEO, Guillemot, were exploring a buyout of the France-based Ubisoft amid the delay of Assassin's Creed Shadows and the bumpy August release of Star Wars Outlaws. Tencent and Guillemot family currently own 10% and 20% respectively of Ubisoft voting rights, so 30% collectively on that. Ubisoft has noted recent press speculation regarding potential interest around the company. Ubisoft said in a statement issued Monday, it regularly reviews all its strategic options in the interest of its stakeholders and will inform the market if and when appropriate. The company reiterates that management is currently focused on executing its strategy centered on two core verticals: open world adventures and GaaS native experiences. September 25th, Ubisoft revealed that its eagerly anticipated next installment in the popular Assassin's Creed franchise, Assassin's Creed Shadows, had been delayed to February the 14th, 2025 from its previously planned November the 15th release date. Ubisoft said the decision was made based on weak performance for the new title, Star Wars Outlaws, and lower than expected profit in the current quarter. At that time, Ubisoft co-founder and CEO Guillemot said an executive committee supervised by the Ubisoft board of directors would be, quote, launching a review aimed at further improving our execution, notably in this player-centric approach, and accelerating our strategic path towards a higher performing model to the benefit of our stakeholders and shareholders. So if we look at the Ubisoft stock prices, right now it's $2.79 a share in US, and we're looking at the 5 year, the past 5 years for this specifically. And if we look at this, it started out at about $12 a share. It peaked at about $20, a little over $20 a share in February the 5th, 2021. And it has slowly descended into what it currently is at $2.79. So amid all this, Sean Weber posted over on Twitter, Xdefiant is already dead. Ubisoft research team is actively asking their testers to have another in-house test session and repeat their feedback. Multiple sources told that it's possible that the game will end its support after Season 4 if they can't get enough players. And then, of course, Mark Rubin has to respond to this, and I'll get into this just in just a little bit. But basically what he said here is, to be crystal clear, there are no plans to shut down after Season 4. I've literally been in meetings as of last week to discuss our Year 2 plans. But right now we are super focused on improving the technical experience, which includes netcode, and adding more content for Seasons 3 and 4. We have done very little marketing, so yes, our numbers are down, but that is just to give the team the time to get the game in a better place before we do bigger spends on marketing to bring new players to the game and to bring back players that have left. So there are a couple of things that is pretty telling about this, to be completely honest. And we're going to focus specifically on Xdefiant as this example because Assassin's Creed Shadows, every time they release anything for the game, it just gets completely lambasted online. The Japanese area, the Japanese people aren't happy about what's happening with the game, and they keep having to push the game back time after time. And we don't know if it's honestly going to be released. As far as Ubisoft selling the company, well, Mark Rubin has no control over what Ubisoft decides to do or what the shareholders decide to do with the company. But look at Xdefiant as a whole. It's a money sink, right? You have a free-to-play game that has a low player count, and low based on arena shooters. If we're going to compare it to the likes of COD, it is a very low player count for the game, and you've got a lot of people that just aren't spending money within the game. The cosmetics aren't that great, the battle passes aren't that great, the game modes aren't that great. The game itself isn't really fantastic. And of course, Mark Rubin is going to try and reassure all of the players and the press and everybody else in the world that no, there's no plans to shut it down. But honestly, it's not his call at the end of the day. And if Ubisoft does sell the company, if someone does take ownership of Ubisoft, Mark Rubin will absolutely not be working at Ubisoft any longer, and Xdefiant as a whole may pivot into a completely different game or be shut down altogether. This is what happens whenever you have a game that was going to try to target an audience that no longer exists. And what I mean by that is COD Classic doesn't exist for a reason. The reason why Call of Duty itself hasn't put out more, classic versions of the COD experience is because gamers have moved on from that. Everybody says that they want like a really fast-paced arena shooter experience, but you have the perfect fast-paced arena shooter experiences with like Unreal Tournament and Quake 3 Arena, and neither one of those games has a multiplayer arena shooter that is currently live and available to play right now. Therefore, it's not going to work for COD, and why Ubisoft, and specifically Mark Rubin that's been pushing this whole time, thought that they could corner a market that no longer exists is beyond me. There's no reason why this game should exist. And I'm not a hater, and I'm not hating on the people that enjoy the game. I understand that there is a niche for the game, but the niche comparatively is a lot smaller than what it used to be, right? And back in the day, people played COD because COD was like the only game there was to play. Whenever you look at the way that console games were released, specifically multiplayer console games, everybody played COD because that was a game that everybody could play together. And I'm not talking about crossplay. I'm not talking about any of that kind of stuff. But like, you may be more interested in sports games or RPGs or whatever, but everybody had COD, and it was a game that everybody played with their friends. That was the only available option back in the day. You had Halo, you had a couple of other games, but as far as like a game that was released on multiple consoles, a game that was released simultaneously on different consoles that wasn't just one console specific, it cornered the market, and that was the only thing that there was to play. And now you have a plethora of games that are being released weekly, multiplayer games that people have access to. You have this whole new free-to-play model, which is a whole different discussion, but it is killing gaming in and of itself. Then you're going to try to capitalize on a niche market that no longer exists by releasing a free-to-play game that is not gaining any trajectory, that's not gaining a rabid, die-hard backbone of a player base that's spending money to be able to access the game. If Ubisoft does decide to sell, the game will more than likely be pivoted or shut down. And there was a lot of bad moves that they made whenever they released Xdefiant itself. The game obviously wasn't ready, just as Mark said in his post here. Right now, we are super focused on improving the technical experience, which includes netcode, and adding more content for seasons 3 and 4. We have done very little marketing, so yes, our numbers are down, but that is just to give the team the time to get the game in a better place before we do bigger spends on marketing to bring new players to the game and to bring back players that have left the game. The game wasn't ready to release. If the game was ready to release, then you wouldn't have this problem. You wouldn't have this issue. The game would be there and available, and the netcode would be fine, and the experience would be an actual complete experience. They rushed the game out. They delayed the game several times, but they rushed the game out, and it's something that should have never been released in the first place. And honestly, it should have not been released in 2024 at this rate. It probably should have been released in late 2025, early 2026 to be able to get the most out of the experience. But with COD pushing the boundaries of what you can do with their Omni movement system that they've got coming in the new Black Ops game, they had to do something. Somebody over there got a copy or played, the new version of COD and was like, we've got to release this as soon as possible and just try to make as much money off of it during this lull, during this down point in gaming, especially first person shooter gaming, so that we can try to net as much money as possible. That way, maybe it will pay for like what it's cost to develop the game, but probably not. And the reality is they used a whole new game engine to create Xdefiant. It was the same game engine that they used to develop The Division, which is a third person, more tactical type of shooter, not a first person, high mobility, in your face, arena shooter experience. It was a third person shooter. They have a first person shooter that has an engine that's already built for it that they could have used as the backbone to be able to build Xdefiant on top of. Why they chose to completely build this from the ground up in an engine that looks like the game arguably looks worse than Rainbow Six Siege does. And it's in 2024. You could have just used that same engine and saved millions of dollars in the process by using that engine that already has the netcode issues ironed out. It's been available to play for what, almost 10 years, if not longer at this point. So why did you decide to make a whole new engine for it? At the end of the day, if Ubisoft does sell, I don't see Xdefiant lasting all that long. And honestly, Ubisoft could decide to sell at any moment, and whoever comes in could basically put all of their properties on hold and shut all of their live service games down and do a hard pivot of the company in one direction or the other. And Mark has no control over that. Nobody at Xdefiant, none of the devs on Xdefiant have any control over that, and the community has no control over that. That's just the harsh reality of the situation. So what do I think is going to happen in the future? It's all going to come down, in my opinion, to how Assassin's Creed Shadows does. If Assassin's Creed Shadows releases in February the 14th of 2025, and it is an absolute bomb, just like Star Wars Outlaws was, then they will more than likely sell the company. And if they sell the company, Mark and the rest of the senior staff over there will no longer be employed by Ubisoft, and they will do hard pivots. They may keep the Xdefiant servers running long enough to figure out what to do with it, and they may decide that they see that as a way to sink money and potentially earn a profit off of, especially since they're buying the company and they're not spending that money to actually develop that game. But at the end of the day, it's going to be a long, hard road for Xdefiant. So be sure to let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you feel like Xdefiant is doomed to fail? Or do you think that someone will come along and actually build the company up and build Xdefiant up to the place that it needs to be? Be sure to let me know what you think in the comments. Also, be sure to check that description for links to Facebook, Discord, and Twitter. Those are the places to contact me. If you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. If you've already subscribed to the channel, then consider hitting that join button to become one of the 256 crew members. Lastly, on Thursdays and also on Sundays, I will be streaming here on YouTube. So if you are interested and available, please feel free to stop by and say hello there. Thanks for watching, guys.